on Instagram. So, all right, everybody. Well, thanks for making it tonight. As you probably have heard, my name is Dr. Ben Benulis. It's spelled Benulis, like Dr. Benulis. Don't try to fool us. No one ever pronounces it right. So if you get it wrong, I won't be upset. And we're going to talk about autoimmune disease tonight. Okay. And so this talk is for you if you are interested in hearing a different perspective. If you want to learn the root cause of your condition and not just treat the symptoms. If you are sick of the medical route and drugs and surgeries and realizing that's a dead end, yes, this is for you. If you're open to making changes in your diet and lifestyle, this is for you. This talk is not for you if you just think that like I'm going to open up a closet somewhere and have like a bag of powder that's like autoimmune vegan and it's like a quick fix, right? If you just want to suppress the symptoms, if you just want like a cure and like a pill that's going to fix it, this isn't for you. So I'm just giving you a heads up, but it sounds like y'all are open to a new perspective. That's why you're here. So I'm really excited to share with you guys. So what we're going to talk about tonight is basically 4 things. So what autoimmune diseases are, where they come from, why the mainstream medical establishment has such a hard time diagnosing them and treating them. I mean, like, if they didn't screw it up so bad, they wouldn't have to be here, right? And then how to actually heal, okay? And so if there's questions, we'll just do them as we go along. Basically, I'm sure what you guys want to know, the elephant in the room is like, okay, well, what's the deal at the end? Like, is there some kind of pitch? Is there some kind of, tub of autoimmune vegan powder at the end? No, real simple. Next step is just, if you're interested in working with me, you can book a free 10-minute call. The little handouts have like a QR code. You can just zap it, and it's a link to set it up with me. And I'm throwing in a deal. If you sign up for that, I'll give you an electronic copy of this book. I'll throw that in. Otherwise, I'm signing copies over there. They're $15, the same price you can get the book on Amazon, not signed. So pretty good deal. And shipping is free because I just hand it to you. Okay. So let's see. So I will tell you guys my story and how I came to be here, because I was not always Dr. Ben. 12 years ago, I was basically some guy working in a cubicle, and I worked in semiconductors, electronics. I was an engineer, and it was pretty much living my own life, minding my own business, when started coming down with a bunch of chronic health problems. I kind of started out kind of innocent, and over the course of 6 to 12 months really snowballed into serious problems. Really bad chronic fatigue, where I was like knocking back 2 to 3 Monster Energy drinks a day. Okay, really bad chronic pain where basically my body felt sore all the time. Was dealing with eczema all over my hands. Was dealing with really, really bad digestive issues. Like everything I ate was just blowing me up. Anybody relate with that? Okay. And so basically at the time, I, had no knowledge of any of this. Like, literally, this is the book that I, if I could go in a time machine and go back to Ben in 2010 and just be like, read this book. Tell me what's in here. I know this guy looks familiar. There's a reason why. That's the plan you follow. But at the time, I was just like, okay, I go to the doctor. I have problems A, B, and C, and they're just going to give me pills, X, Y, and Z, and then I'll be good. And no, she's shaking her head. Like, no, it doesn't work like that, does it? No. You go in there and you think they're gonna fix you, right? Mm-hmm. And then you find out, oh, we ran your blood work and everything looks normal. Anybody ever hear that?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay, yeah. There must be nothing wrong with you. Must be all in your head.
Right, got that too.
Good news, your blood work looks normal, right? And so basically, you get the runaround. And for me, it was like, oh, you got skin problems? We'll send you to the dermatologist. Oh, you got bad digestion? Gastroenterologist. Oh, you got, this chronic fatigue we can't understand? Endocrinologist, right? And then it's like one doctor becomes 3 or 4, and then each one of those they can't figure out, so they say, oh, I'll send you to this other gastroenterologist. He'll be able to figure it out, right? And then you just get passed around, and everybody like does the thing that they do. They run their regular tests, they run their regular exam, and they go, can't figure it out, right? And so so that was basically what happened with me. I was like, I thought this was the best. Isn't this America? Don't we have like the best doctors? Well, if you look at the data on that, we actually don't. We have the most expensive doctors. We don't have necessarily the doctors that get the best results. That comes extra. So basically, I was getting nowhere. I was not getting any better. They would put me on certain drugs to see what happens, and they either didn't do anything or made me worse. Anybody experience with that? Okay. So about like 8 or 9 months into it, I was just like, this is just a merry-go-round. Like I'm literally going, and like I had health insurance, so it was like I was just paying like a $5, $10, $20 copay every time I went. It wasn't like a big deal, but it was like the time and the fact that I wasn't getting results. Eventually, it was just like, okay, like time out here, guys. Like no one's solving the problem. And it's like the system where basically they only have a few minutes with you, so they're just like, okay, man, I can't figure it out. I don't know, right? Like no one really took the time to sit me down and say, hey, Ben, we can't figure out what's wrong with you. Ran all the blood work, it all looks normal. I know you're still struggling with all this stuff, but we're gonna figure it out, or I'm gonna get you to the person that's gonna figure it out. Like no one ever said that to me. It was just sort of like, not my, like someone else's problem. And so I got pretty disillusioned, as I imagine some of you have. And so that's when I started looking into other things. I was like, okay, I have a science background, it's like, I tutored chemistry in college, so I gotta figure this stuff out. And so I had to, go and just start researching, reading articles, reading books, watching videos, watching documentaries, just like massively self-educating. And I came across information that said, well, if you just eat healthier, all these things go away. And I thought, that sounds plausible, but I don't want to do it. So never mind that idea. But eventually it just got to the point where I had exhausted every other kind of thing, every other alternative option, and was like, okay, well, I'm going to give this a shot because I'm pretty sick and tired of being sick and tired. And when I finally got that figured out, like the nutrition component, there's a lot of experimenting, a lot of like ups and downs and wrong turns and all that. But once I got that like pretty dialed in, it was like things just started to improve. And pretty soon, on the right program, within like 6 weeks, symptoms had subsided. Chronic pain had gone away, digestion got way better, energy went from chronic fatigue to like, let's sign up for a Tough Mudder or a Spartan race. That'll be fun to do. Got all this energy. And the eczema in the skin cleared up. The brain fog went from like I could barely do my job to like I'm done for the day at 3 o'clock. Let's go on a walk because there's no more work to do at my job and they won't notice if I'm gone because I did everything. So that's my story. What I want to get into is we'll talk about the what. Okay, so what is autoimmune disease? Anybody want to take a stab at that one?
When the body attacks itself.
Okay, awesome. Yes. So auto meaning self, and then immune being this system that what does the immune system do?
Protects you from disease and infections, bacteria.
Yes, protects you from infection, fights off foreign invaders.
Right.
And so what happens is with an autoimmune disease is that this immune system starts attacking the self by mistake. And so this immune system that's supposed to fight off the bad guys gets a wire across and goes, oh, let's attack you. And so depending on what part of the body it attacks, they give it a different name, right? Like if it attacks the joints in your hands, it's rheumatoid arthritis. If it attacks your intestines, it's Crohn's disease or colitis. If it attacks your thyroid, it's Hashimoto's disease. They got a really fancy one, Latin and Greek word enough now. They got to throw in Japanese to make it sound really fancy, right? And so it's the same disease process, but they got to give it a different fancy name depending on where it does its thing. But it's still the same root cause. Okay, so let's see. So, for example, anybody heard of one called Ankylosing Spondylitis?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one that attacks the joints in your low back. It's a mouthful, right? It sounds like the doctor's like, you got ankylosing spondylitis, and the person's like, ankle what? I had a client who she was diagnosed with it. She was the only person she ever knew that had it. And just to give you an idea, she was in her early 30s, and sometimes her back pain and stiffness would get so bad that she would like sit on the toilet and then not be able to reach around to wipe. Okay, at like 33 years old. All right, we got her on a program, eating healthier, tons of fruits and vegetables. Her inflammation marker, there's an inflammation marker called CRP, C-reactive protein, and if you have an inflammatory disease, it's really high. Hers was like 10, which is ridiculous. And now it's down to 1, which is like really, really good. And that was in like 8 weeks, and she wasn't even like perfect with it. She admitted she made mistakes. So let's see. What are the main symptoms of autoimmune disease? So usually there's some kind of chronic pain somewhere in the body, or all over the body maybe. Chronic fatigue, low energy, brain fog, can't think straight, can't think like you used to, can't do your job like you used to. There's usually some kind of digestive component. And then lastly, there's sensitivities. Okay. Anybody want to, did I spell that word? I hope so. Anybody want to take a guess at what I mean when I say sensitivities?
The sounds and temperatures? Like,
I haven't heard of sounds,
oh, okay.
but definitely temperatures is one of them.
Allergies?
Yes, allergies, could be smells, could be food, could be like chemicals, whether they touch your skin or you inhale them, you become sensitive. Yes, the hot and the cold is a big one. Like there are people that are like so sensitive to cold, they just move here just because it's like they know it'll be hot all the time. Like my neighbor has MS, and he's like, look, it sucks because it's really hot in the summer here, but like honestly, that's when my MS acts up the least. Sometimes another one I noticed is a lot of people with these sensitivities are oftentimes an emotional sensitivity as well. Okay, so those are the main symptoms. I had a client, her name was Stephanie, and she had hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, the fancy Japanese one. It's actually the most common autoimmune disease. Ooh, I'm not on camera here. Hi, everybody in Instagram land. Didn't forget about you. And so she had chronic fatigue. She had really bad digestive problems to where like she would sit on the toilet for like an hour and like literally cry because it was so painful. She would pass stool. Okay. I remember she did my program, and like 6 weeks in, gets her blood work on her thyroid done, and her TSH, which is like if it's a high number, it means that your thyroid is really troubled. Hers was 0.01, and so took it to the doctor's like, oh my god, we gotta take you like off medication now because your thyroid numbers are like too low. And so that was a big success for her. That was awesome. So what I want to talk about is these are like the symptoms. Like this is what you deal with, right? Let's talk about what you really deal with, because I think it's like, yes, there's all of this, But keep in mind, you could be dealing with pretty much all of them, and nobody could tell from the outside, right? Like, you could be walking around, like, if you look around the room today, can you tell who's got an autoimmune disease by looking at them? No. So what ends up happening is it becomes like an invisible disease, where basically you're dealing with this stuff, but on the outside you look fine. Okay? So that might not sound too bad, but then everybody treats you like this stuff isn't going on. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. And they're like, well, you don't look sick. You don't look like anything's wrong with you. And imagine what like your friends are doing that, your spouse is doing that, your coworkers are doing that, your doctor is like, well, you look fine. You know, the labs look fine. Why are you complaining? It's all in your head, right? And so what does this do? It makes it worse, because you're like, am I crazy? Like the doctor doesn't believe me. My friends don't believe me. Am I losing my mind? I definitely went through that myself, because it was like, you know, I just remember, like, everybody at work was like, Ben, what's wrong with you? Like, my partner was like, why, you're just like being a baby. The doctors were all like, oh, your labs look normal, like you're fine, everything's fine, just shake it off. Just do a few laps, walk it off. Just do a few laps around the block, walk it off. And so it really messed with my head. So I was like, am I imagining this? Or is this real, or what? And so it becomes a very, very lonely disease to deal with. So let's see what else we got in here. So I had a client. She was dealing with a bunch of this stuff, and on top of this, she was blind. So people like really didn't take her seriously. Like they really thought, oh, just crazy old blind lady. Like, we don't have to listen to her. But she did the work, and she made juices, and I don't even know how she did it, honestly, because she was an online client. But she made changes to her diet. She saw big shifts, like chronic pain, like almost went away. Mobility was way better. Was not dealing with like breaking out and all these crazy like rashes, and made really big changes. And it's funny because we tried to like film a testimonial video, and she can't like point the camera at herself. So it never came out. Okay, so that's the what. Let's get into the where. Where the heck do these things come from?
Bad eating habits.
Bad eating habits.
Style.
Okay. Stress. Anybody else want to take a guess?
Emotion.
Not that I'm saying you guys are wrong or anything, but
Vaccines.
we'll get to that, yeah. Trauma, yes, absolutely. Now, if you ask the mainstream medic, if you go to your rheumatologist, to go to your MD, what do they tell you? Genetics, yeah. Diseases that are, anybody know the current rate of like how many people have them right now in the United States, an autoimmune disease? 1 out of how many, would you guess?
1 out of 4.
7?
It's 1 out of 7, yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's still, 1 out of 4 is, it's trending that way. Because, like, in the 1980s, it was 1 in 10,000.
Wow.
So now if it's 1 in 7, how is that genetic, right? Did everybody's genes just kind of go haywire? Doesn't add up. Doesn't hold water. It's like the gene pool doesn't just change like that. So then the other thing is say, we don't know. No, we don't know. But let's suppress your immune system because it's acting bad. So what we do know is that basically we've got toxins, like environmental toxins, and we'll talk a lot about that because that's coming from a ton of places. And we've got stress, and along with stress is trauma. Okay, so we've got way more industrial pollutants out there. Before 1996, there was no such thing as a GMO crop. It's not necessarily the fact that they're genetically modified, it's more so what they spray on them or what they genetically modify them to produce as a pesticide. is toxic to the body. Let's see, did I? Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of toxic. We talked about food, right? It's like, 50 years ago, all food was organic. Like 60 years ago, right? Like there was no like conventional. Like it was like we just didn't spray pesticides on stuff. But now it's like, no, it's genetically modified so that we could spray so much pesticides on it that normally it would die from spraying that much on. But we'll genetically modify the plant so it doesn't die, and then we'll spray with a ton of pesticide, and then you hopefully won't die if you eat it. There's someone mentioned it, but there's this barbaric practice where they actually like inject you with toxins to try to make your immune system stronger. You guys heard about this?
Huh.
It was like they sold a lot of them last year and this year. I'm talking about vaccination, but if you think about it, basically, if you, and I wish when I do this as a PowerPoint, I usually have the studies up, but this was something I didn't want to believe when I first started looking at cause of autoimmune disease, and then it was pretty much everywhere. They would say like side effects. 2% of people got an autoimmune disease of everybody who took the HPV vaccine. I'm seeing them in my office now of people like who took one of the COVID shots and they either didn't have one or they had one that was in remission and it came back or it got worse, or they started with 1 or 2 autoimmune diseases and now they have like 5 of them. And so what happens is drugs have side effects, okay? And so when we have a drug that's specifically designed to modulate the immune system, affect how the immune system works, it would be nice if it just did what it was supposed to do every time and there were no adverse effects. But if you ever watch a pharmaceutical commercial on TV, you know that they have side effects. So when you're dealing with a drug that is supposed to modify your immune system and it screws up and has a side effect that makes your immune system do the wrong thing, and then boom, immune system is attacking you. Okay? Oh, let's see. So, that is just some of the causes, and honestly, you can't do much about some of those things, but you can do, when it comes to toxins, obviously, there's the food that you eat. That's a variable you can control. And then stress is something that you can work on mitigating. Trauma is sometimes something you can work through, sometimes not. So these are all variables you can control, and we'll get more into that. And that plays a big part of it. So what I want to get into next is why does the mainstream medical system have such damn hard time figuring this stuff out?
They make too much money.
Yeah, that's true. But at some point they like got to get results, right? Like if no one's getting better, eventually everyone's going to jump ship, I hope, right? Okay. So, what is the medical model? The medical model is basically we are going to look at your symptoms. We don't really care about the root cause because medicine is siloed into something they call specialties, right? Where it's like, oh, you got the gastroenterologist, he focuses on the stomach, and then you got the nephrologist, and he focuses on the kidneys, and then you got the cardiologist, and she takes care of the heart, and they just don't look at anything else, right? But an autoimmune disease is more often than not a systemic disease. And so what they try to do is they look at individual symptoms, and they basically 2 ways of treating them, okay? Drugs. Heard of these? Been on these? Yeah. This is like, oh, autoimmune, your immune system is attacking your body, so we got to suppress your immune system. Sounds great if you don't think about it, right? Because, boy, you kind of need that immune system, right, guys? Like, might be like a virus going around. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I'd be dead with that one.
And so it's like now they suppress your immune system, and now one health problem became like a bunch of other health problems. And now you're getting like skin infections and coughs, and you like let that go long enough. I mean, the immune system fights off cancer, so if you're on these immune suppressant drugs for 20 years, guess what? Your body is like, there's a lot of cancer your body couldn't fight off in 20 years, and you might just get it. It's listed as a side effect on the package insert. So this is the model. Treat the symptom. We'll suppress your immune system. A system you really need, we're going to turn it off. And if we break this, then you won't have joint pain. And yeah, you know what? You'll get leukemia, but it's okay because you have an oncologist who will take care of that, right? And she says it makes too much money, right? Because it's like the specialist just has to fix the problem in front of him, right? If he causes a bunch of other diseases or problems, what we call iatrogenic effects, he doesn't have to deal with it, right? Or he's got malpractice insurance, or so anyway, it becomes you get on a merry-go-round, you get on the hamster wheel, because it's like you're trading one problem for another. No one's looking at the root cause. Other option, medical model, surgery, right? Oh, your colon's inflamed, and it's this tube that's on the inside of your body, right? And it starts here and it ends here, and the only thing that goes through it is the food that you eat. But the reason that you have a disease in it is not because of the food that you eat. Because if it were, we would have learned about it in medical school, but we never learned nutrition in medical school, so that must not be the answer. Do not pay attention to the man in the social healing house talking about nutrition. So, what's it going to be? It's like, well, the drugs have failed. It's time for surgery. We're just going to cut it out. Like your colon. Like it's Uncle Joey from Full House. Like, cut it out. Poop in a bag the rest of your life. All right. But these are the options they give you. Okay? I had a guy, one of the very first autoimmune people I worked with, he had ulcerative colitis. Okay? And his name is Zohar. Let's say that. Haven't heard that name before. But he had been doing the drugs for 20 years and been doing them faithfully and doing exactly what the doctors told him to do because he thought that's what he was supposed to do. And so he still dealt with symptoms, but like it wasn't so bad. He was immune suppressed. And they would go and they would do this thing where they cram a camera up your butt every year. It's called colonoscopy. You heard of this? And they basically would check and make sure, okay, is everything good? And then around 35, they do the colonoscopy, like, whoo, it's bad, we're going to have to cut it out. And that's when he went, like, record scratch, like, excuse me, we're going to do what? Like, no, we're not going to do that. And so he just started searching online, and he found me, and we had a talk. He was a teacher, and basically they told him, well, you know, it was about this time of year. It was like late May, early June, and he, and they're like, well, just get the colon cut out now, and then, you know, recover over the summer, and then just come back in the fall, and you'll be ready to teach. And he was like, not doing that. I'm going to figure something else out. So anyway, we put him on a diet plan. It was great because it was like summer. It was like all the best fruits and vegetables were in season. He ate in abundance. And he's just like, I'm going to put it off till September, and then we're going to do a follow-up colonoscopy. I'm going to try this crazy diet thing. And then if it's still a problem, then y'all can do your thing and cut me up. And so he goes in for the colonoscopy, and he was like, I mean, this guy, his butt was literally on the line, so he like did exactly what I told him to do, like no complaints, which was great for me. And he goes in and gets the colonoscopy, and he's feeling great, like no symptoms, like just feeling the best he's felt in like 20 years. And he goes in and gets a colonoscopy, and then like a day or two later, he goes into the gastroenterologist, and they're like, okay, so there's a problem. We pulled up your scan from the lab, and there's got to be some kind of mistake. We got the wrong like colonoscopy because it shows no disease, and so there's a mix-up. We're going to have to reschedule for next week. We're really sorry. Just come back in a week. And so he's like, okay. Comes back in a week. They're like, something's weird because we double-checked with the lab, and this is definitely your scan, and there's no sign of the disease. You have spontaneous remission. Congratulations. Like, what did you do? And he's like, well, you know, I started eating better with all these like smoothies and fruits and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Keep doing what you're doing. All right, bye-bye, next.
Wow.
Yeah. Didn't even want to hear it. They're just like, oh, spontaneous remission. Okay. can't cut this out. You know, it's like a $50,000 surgery. We're not going to be able to bill. Get out of here, right? How did it work? How did you heal? How did it happen? Oh, that's not of any consequence to us. We can't medicine you anymore, so we don't care. I wish it weren't that way, but that's what goes down.
I have a short story to share with you.
Okay, if it's short, fire away.
Well, I've been having colonoscopies for forever, you know, for four of them. They only find polyps, history of colon cancer, blah, blah, blah. I get diagnosed with Barrett's syndrome. I go back the next 4 years or 3 years to get the scope. No Barrett's. Why? Because I changed my diet. I added some incredible homeopathic things. I cured my Barrett's disease by a simple searching on
Change of,
alternative,
eating habits, you know.
Yeah.
you know, Ayurvedic procedures, medicines, and they were like, "What? You just don't get rid of Barrett's disease; it gets worse and causes cancer of the trachea." You know.
It doesn't even compute to them. They're just like, what?
No.
Like,
Yeah. So.
this is not what I read. I memorized from the textbook.
Yeah, and I took a simple thing that's made in Russia. It's called ivergas, and it's good for intestinal and upper, and it coated everything and did its job. It's like a pine oil, and it worked great.
And they were just like, does not compute.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I don't want. This isn't like spend the whole time bashing the medical system. But it's like if it worked, I wouldn't be up here when I got to write this book. We wouldn't be in this room. You know, people wouldn't be dealing with this stuff. They would just fix it, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. So that brings me to my next thing. This is the medical model. Okay, we're gonna fight your disease, right? Oh, they love to fight it, right? We got the war on cancer. And we got, that was in the 1970s. Now we got cancer is what, second leading cause of death, trying to beat out heart disease for number one. We had the war on drugs. Now it's like 100,000 overdose deaths now a year. It was like 30,000 a few years ago. People on more and more pharmaceutical medication. The drugs won the war. The cancers won in the war. We had the war on terror. Still got plenty of terror. So it's like every time we try to fight something, we just get more of it. Like, oh, we'll fight your immune system because that's all. Oh, you get other diseases. Oh, now we got to fight a bunch of other diseases, right? And so, anybody heard the term "what you resist persists"? Okay, yeah. So what you fight, like what you focus on, whether it's positive or negative, you manifest more of it, right? So this model just creates more this disease. So the opposite of that would be, title of my book. Because it was just like, how do I, and I think I'm going to write a book called Fight Disease as well as a sequel to it, but that's the strategy here. Instead of like fighting disease, suppressing the immune system, cutting your body parts out, like drugging, fighting, but doing nothing to actually bolster the organism itself, it's like when you think about it, it's like this is kind of a suboptimal strategy.
Right.
But it's the only one most of them got, so that's what they're going to go with. So creating health is, you're going for the same outcome, but you have an opposite perspective. It's like, what can we do to create the most amount of health? Let me give you an example. If you cut your hand, what happens? Just get like a cut across the hand here. What happens?
It bleeds.
It bleeds. What eventually happens? Coagulates. The wound closes up. It heals, right? What if you cut your hand and then you like rub a bunch of dirt and sand and stuff in there?
Delay the healing.
It'll delay the healing. Might get infected. It'll take longer. It'll be painful. It'll get gross. And if you keep doing it, you never ever, like if you're constantly like picking at the scab and running like every day, day in and day out, aggravating it, like it's going to get worse or it's never going to get better, right? What happens if you put a bandage on the cut?
Protects it.
Protects it. Okay, so then what?
It heals.
It heals. And it heals faster than if you didn't, right? Now let me ask you this. You ever take a bandage off and the cut's healed and you go, wow, bandage! You healed my hand! So cool! Check out what the Band-Aid did to my hand! Right? It sounds absurd. It's like, no, the bandage didn't do anything, right? Or it didn't heal you. It doesn't have any magical healing properties. But what did it do? It provided the body the conditions to heal itself. Okay? It removed the obstruction, so dirt wasn't going to get in there, bacteria wasn't going to get in there, and the body could just go about doing its thing that it knows how to do, which is heal itself unobstructed. Okay? And so the leap that I want you guys to make is that this same process happens for pretty much any chronic disease condition. That most of the time we're so obstructed from toxins, right? Poor diet, poor sleep, lots of stress, eating horrible food, using like toxic chemicals on our body, whether that's like, shampoo or soap or household cleaning products or, toothpaste or whatever it is. We're like exposing our body to all these toxins, and it's like, I'm trying to do stuff here, would you leave me alone, right? And then you start providing the body the optimal conditions to get rid of all this stuff. You eat healthy food that grows out of the ground and off of a tree, and you get rid of like the pizza and the Cheetos and all that stuff, and the body doesn't have to fight any of that off anymore, and then it can start working on the backlog of all of this stuff. Start cleaning house, because it's like if you're no longer toxifying it, well then it can actually clear the backload of toxicity that it has, and this stuff starts to go away because you're creating this health, right? And from that model, it's like disease isn't even a problem. We don't see it as a thing that we need to fight. It's just a consequence of the body not having what it needs to heal itself. So that begs the question then: what are the optimal conditions for creating health? What does this involve? Right? I wrote a whole book on it. But we'll get into it here, right? You came to be here. It's not like, well, that's all in the next time. Come back next a week and I'll tell you. So, the healthiest foods you can eat are going to be fruits and vegetables. My kindergarten teacher told me in 1987, and I didn't pay attention. 23 years later, I had to figure it out on my own. But anyway, Gail is here tonight, right?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm giggling.
And she is, and so she is going to be, or she already has. Why don't you tell us what you made or are in the process of making?
Oh, okay, you want me to talk about mango? Well, I'm just blending up mangoes and bananas because it's delicious and nutritious.
Nice.
Mangoes have great vitamin C and bananas are great. They said it's called the HIV, so
It's
it's
the
got a
perfect
great
food.
combination of just something very simple, mangoes and bananas.
Can you, since we're on Instagrams and people are watching, can you bring them by and just show the peeps? We got 16 on the live feed, so.
All right, I'll bring over things.
So,
You want me to show what I have? I'll come
yeah,
over
so
like
it's
that.
not like you blended up
Okay, we'll
one or
take
two,
an A. No, I'm just kidding. Go
it's
ahead.
not like you had one or two bananas or one or two, this is we got 7 mangoes in there?
However many you brought. Did you bring 8?
I don't know,
You
something
brought
like that, between 6 and 8.
And then I had some frozen, but they're defrosting, and then I
Okay.
have some fresh if we need more.
Alright, so she's not messing around, right? This is serious business. It's not just, eat another apple with your ham sandwich and your lupus will go away. No, this is serious business here. Hitting the fruits and vegetables hard. Personally, Gail, I'm sure you do something similar, but I'm eating sometimes upwards of 10 pounds a day of fruits and vegetables.
Wow.
And so it's if you you want to heal something like this, you got to do this as much as you can, right? And to the degree that you do this, and the more of that stuff you consume, the better shot you got at this all going away. Does that make sense? Let's open it up for questions and all that.
Definitely.
So basically, you change your lifestyle to create health
Yes.
instead of consuming things that you know are bad for you, then continue the process of all that stuff.
Mindset,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a mindset, then you're looking at a better chance of healing within.
So the body's always trying to heal itself. Always trying to. That's how you're like. You look at some of these people, and they, like what they live on, like smoking 4 packs a day, Arby's every day. It's like, how are you alive? Well, the human body's like pretty resilient, right? Like it's not you're gonna have a quality of life or anything, but like you stay alive, right? And so it's like as long as we can keep you at this like kind of like low state, like hey, you're alive, we can keep billing your insurance. Like this is good, right? It's like the body can kind of maintain, like stay alive, but with just a bunch of disease. And so it's like the less things you can do to basically cause disease, the more the body can focus on healing itself. So it's like the better a chance you give to the body. It's like if you have a plot of land, right? You want to grow a garden, right? Well, you got to get in there, and you got to weed it, and you got to water it, and you got to plant the seeds, and you got to put up fences to keep the chipmunks from eating the cucumbers and all that stuff, right? And it's like you don't actually like grow the garden, you don't make the plants come out of the ground. Like they do that on their own, but it's like if there's stuff in the way blocking that, it's not going to happen. Well, it's the same way with your body. Like the more obstructions to healing you can snowplow out of the way, the better you just let it do its thing.
So have you told them all the benefits about fruit, why it's so amazing?
Yeah, we can get into that. I mean, fruit is the optimum food for humans.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, people think it's like, oh, it's got too much sugar, right? Like if it had too much sugar, I wouldn't have been able to fit through the door into here because I'd be like 800 pounds of diabetic. And so if you look at like our closest ancestors in nature, which is like bonobos and chimpanzees, we have like 98% the same DNA. What do those guys eat? They eat fruit
Yes.
and a little bit of vegetables and a little bit of bugs. So make sure you eat your bugs.
Is that what they want to do? They want us all to eat bugs, right?
Well, that's what Michael Crow, did you hear about that? He like ate, he's like, in the future we're all going to eat bugs. Like the president of ASU and in front of like a bunch of students like ate a cricket.
That's what they've been talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're shipping over a lunch.
Bug burgers.
Canada and the US.
Just
Crickets.
cover them in chocolate.
But they're doing that in Thailand already. I mean, there's a monger over there that actually has a whole setup of insects that they get fried and it's on sticks and.
I will let you guys know a little secret. I healed from autoimmune disease, never had to eat a single bug.
Yeah.
Helped dozens of clients the same. No one ever had to eat a bug. Did they get them like when they were sleeping and the spiders crawling around? Maybe. I don't know. We were keeping track of that. But the good news is you can do it on fruits and vegetables and no bugs.
So Dr. Ben, I'm sure they're wondering, how do they start this process? Because for both of us, we went on a journey. So
Yeah.
for them, if they want to do this, where do you tell them to start?
I would say just start with like including as much as the stuff as you can. Don't worry about like, oh, I can't eat this or that or anymore. It's like just get as many fruits and vegetables. Like the blender's awesome, right? Because it's basically like
a ninja.
it's like the microwave of healthy eating, right? Like you open it up, you throw the food in there, and then you close it, and then you hit the button, and then like 30 seconds later, your smoothie's ready, right? It's like the same way a microwave works, but you actually make health food out of it, right? So it's like finding simple ways to just include more of it, and then the other stuff just kind of gets crowded out eventually. And like you keep feeling so good doing it, you're like, I want more of this, and then you go back and you have pizza, and you're like, oh my god, my body, oh my god, never again, right? But you still do it 3 or 4 more times because you're addicted. But eventually you like figure it out that maybe that's not the best idea, and it becomes like an upward spiral because you're feeling so good doing it. You want to keep feeling good, and you know what it's like to feel really bad and feel really good. And once you have that contrast, you're like, I'm gonna stick with feeling good. It's like people are like, Dr. Ben, don't you ever want to have a beer? It's like, no, because I know what it's gonna do to me. It's not worth like spending the weekend in bed in chronic pain. No, thank you.
You know, what also happens too is your taste buds actually kind of change.
Yeah.
So you start finding that you're craving the fruit more instead of those other foods. But it takes about 6 months before that starts to happen. Did you experience that also?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can happen sooner than, I think it's more like 30 days it can be.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, it's debatable, right? But the phenomenon happens regardless of whatever timeline you want to guess it happens on. But it's like, yeah, it's like it just tastes so good. And then, you know, I remember like I went and like 6 months into this, I had a grape soda because someone gave it to me. And I was just like, I took one sip and I was like, oh God, what is this? No, never again. So my taste buds had changed, and it was like too much. It was like someone screaming in my ear. It was like, ah.
That happened to me once too, because back in the 80s, I discovered Dr. Ann Wigmore's Institute in Michigan, and I had a bunch of conditions, and I stayed there for a day, and then was taught how to make Rejuvelac and how to sprout, you know, grass and all that stuff, and make wheatgrass juice and all this stuff. It was basically live food, no cooked food, all live food, fruits and vegetables, you know, smoothies made with Rejuvelac and greens and avocados, whatever. And I literally could not eat a cooked thing, or, you know, I was a vegetarian for over 30 years. I couldn't even go, you know, eat a cooked pasta dish. It was like, ugh. You know, my taste buds were so tuned in to what I was doing. And I did it for 6 weeks. In the process, I lost weight, which was like a side effect of doing it because it was so healthy. But I got rid of all of my conditions at that time. It was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we can definitely do more questions. Like I said, books, I got a few more left to sign. If you're interested, they're $15. And like I said, if you need more help, if you like want to work with me, on the paper there's a thing for a QR code. Sign up for a 10-minute call with me, and I'll throw in a free electronic copy of this book. So otherwise, we can just go back to Q&A.
So I have a question. Does it take your body initially some? Okay, so because a couple years ago I tried to replace one of my meals with salads, and I tell you I had the most gastrointestinal issues doing that, and I stopped. So I'm wondering, like, does it take your body like time to adjust to this diet? Like, is it at first like you have diarrhea or, you know, like a lot of gas and stuff until your body gets used to it? Because that's always been what's turned me off the most for eating more of a vegetarian diet. Like,
Okay.
I try to include vegetables in our meals, and eat that, but like fruits, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Sure, great question. I think that especially for people with digestive issues, if they're eating like a salad with like 10 different ingredients, like 10 different types of vegetables in it, and a dressing and all this stuff, it's like the body's like, oh, that's too much, right? And so that's where simplicity can come in really helpful, where you're just doing like really simple, like this is 2 ingredient smoothie, right? Real easy on the digestion. The body just has like 2 things to digest. I made a smoothie the other day. It was all mangoes. Like I just basically cut up mangoes and put them until the blender was full, and then it was like, oh, it's the best thing ever. It was so good. Highly recommended. And so it's like if you can simplify the number of ingredients, it makes it way easier on the digestion. So I would say start off with like just doing really, really simple, like no more than 3 ingredients in a meal. 1 optimally, like literally just blend bananas or just blend mangoes, and you find that would be easier on the digestion. If you're doing like a big salad with a bunch of different ingredients, you know, that might be tough. But maybe you just take something like this, like bananas and mangoes. You blend it, and then you just, you know, chop up some lettuce and you pour it on there as a salad, and then you have like 3 ingredient salad. Or you just throw the lettuce in with the bananas and mangoes, and you just drink it like it's all liquid. I do that all the time. But just keep the number of ingredients low in the beginning, and that should be a lot kinder on your digestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
This may be a really weird question, but
I love them. The weird questions. Fire away.
I recently just have this craving to eat salad in the morning.
Okay.
Very early in the morning when I'm leaving for work. Like I used to have bread, now I'm kind of like we don't do that anymore. Fruits, of course, always been my top thing. But salads for some reason, because I'm always having salads in the afternoon, at night, you know. But now it's becoming a crave to have salad in the morning. So is that an occasion?
It's terrible. Don't do that. There's a time and a place for
Somebody
salad.
always asks me, what do you have for breakfast? And I'm like, sliced bread, because I'm lying actually. Because I just had salad. You know what I mean? Why do I want to say salad at 6 o'clock to someone who's having a bagel with coffee?
Hey, if your body's asking for vegetables, like fire away. Like that's. I mean, you're way ahead of the pack with that. And some people have to really choke them down. So that's good.
Yeah, it's so good. Kale salad.
I will say when I went to Israel, they ate salad for breakfast, and I thought it was really
see,
weird.
Asians are crazy like that. You know, coming from an Indian family, vegetables is always the utmost thing to have in a family. Everybody's into it. So if you eat salad in the morning, you're a good guy. Don't eat salad in the morning, something's wrong with you. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But here,
Yeah, if you do it at any time, people are like, "What's that green stuff?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Oh, you should
Want to go get Chipotle? Come on, what are you doing?"
You should see when I go around my super energizing detox smoothie, and it has like barley grass juice powder, wheatgrass juice powder, has all the different kinds of berries, and some people are like, what are you drinking, sewage? It's really good for me.
My barber was like, "Is that swamp
Carbon oil in
water?"
there.
You know?
Yeah, it looks like swamp water.
And then like 2 months later, I came back for another haircut, and he's drinking it. So sometimes the people that make fun of you the most are the ones who are like really need it, you know,
Yeah.
and I just want to make fun of you because like they feel insecure, but then they're coming up to you like, "Can you give me some recipes? Like, what are you doing here?" Oh my goodness. Right?
Yeah.
that's funny because that happened to me last week. I just take fruits for lunch to work, and I don't eat with my friends because I get nauseated to see what they eat. Sitting in a van with the AC on, and you have smells of sausages, pizza, and Wendy's. Every Thursday, they have to stop at Wendy's. We're
Oh.
having salad. But
Real quick, for the people watching on the live stream, if you want to book a call with me, there's a link in the bio. If you want a copy of the book, there's a link in the bio. So just let you guys know. But we'll keep going with Q&A, and then let's see, is there Q&A in here? Let's see.
they should have.
Someone says eat carnivore. Yeah, good luck with that. What's interesting is all the carnivore people are now adding fruit to their diet. After they said carbs were bad and vegetables were bad for years and years and years. Let's see, awesome results. Okay. So no one's. I got no questions in the chat here, but what you got? Anything else, guys?
What about tofu? What's your question?
Is there,
Tofu.
I'll get both questions, but go ahead. Yeah.
what's your take on frozen fruit versus fresh fruit when you're making smoothies?
I mean, I think fresh is better, but like you can still heal disease using like frozen fruit you get from Costco. So I don't think it's like, like you really want to be particular, stick to fresh. But I think you can get good results using frozen. And then sometimes the frozen stuff is like flash pasteurized before they actually freeze it and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I do it all the time. And then we had the question about tofu. Here's the thing, for people with digestive issues, it can be really tough. If it's not organic, it's probably GMO, which means it's slathered in pesticides. They often process it with something called hexane gas, which is not good for humans. So it's like, if you're eating like soybeans off of the plant, probably not too bad, but the whole industrialized process that has become tofu is like causes a lot of problems. So I personally, I stay away from it. I can't handle it. It's always bad news for me.
Well, I heard it raises your cortisol levels, causes dementia, not to mention all the toxins that maybe.
I have not heard those things.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere that it may cause those things, especially in women. It's worse for women because our hormones are always fluctuating, and if you keep constantly eating that and it's messing with your hormones, well then you're gonna get all this Hashimoto and all these things, and wonder why you can't lose weight and all these things.
Is tofu soy?
Yeah, it's processed soy.
I've heard that in an article somewhere, fact check, that soy is one of the vegetables, the soybean, that is more capable in comparison to others to be able to absorb what's around its environment, more so than any other fruit or vegetable. So the soybean, if they're spraying in that area during its lifespan is going to absorb more of those chemicals or what's around it into itself.
I haven't heard that, but wouldn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I got a big question. I've eaten a lot of good veggies and stuff now in the last 3 years, changed my diet. When I eat an apple, I am extremely starving afterward. It's like I got, my whole system just like, I need more food. It's extreme, just for apples.
Okay.
I don't know if I need
My
any-
question would be, is it organic?
I don't know. Out of the store.
That's a whole separate discussion.
Apple's also a food that has like a really high like fiber to calorie ratio. Like it's good for weight loss because you can just chow away at them, and there's like like
It's water.
yeah, there's not too many calories. So yeah, it's not gonna be like super satiating for sure unless you're like using that to chop it in applesauce, and then it's a little bit easier to get down. But like a medium apple is gonna be like 60 calories, and it's like you're gonna eat 3 or 4 of them.
Probably need 12 of them just to
Yeah.
fill.
Yeah. It's kind of like celery, It's, well, I mean, not as much as celery, but like very fibrous, high water, high fiber, which are great for you, and almost no calories.
So I have a scenario that might play into a good question with a great answer.
Okay.
And that scenario would involve me giving them your book, shameless plug, and then they're into it and they want to change their life. Then they come at me with this. Well, I got diabetes or something like that, and it's probably the reason why they're healing themselves.
Yeah.
But their concern with it is that there's too much sugar in these fruits.
Yeah.
And my insulin is off the charts, and I can't do that, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, how do we reassure them that that's not the case? Or
That's a great question. And the good news is that whether they have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, like fruit's a great option. And they're told that you can't have sugar, right? Because you got diabetes and your blood sugar's high. But when you understand the physiology of how blood sugar goes up and down, it makes a lot more sense. But so basically, what you don't want is too much sugar in the bloodstream at any given time. And so there's fiber in fruit, okay, which has 3 jobs. And of course, everyone knows it makes you poop better, right? Number 2, it feeds your good gut microbiome, right? So it feeds the good guys. And the third one that people don't know too well is that it actually slows the absorption of sugar into the bloodstream. Okay, so if you drink that giant smoothie, it's not going to be like, blood sugar, right? It's going to be slow because there's still fiber in it even after you blend it. So it's a slow absorption. But if you fill that vitamin, that blender up with, Coca-Cola and just chug it, no fiber, you're in for a world of hurt, right? Because it's just going to go right into the bloodstream and bam, like a huge negative metabolic cascade. And so the other thing with diabetes is that fat actually blocks insulin, which is the chemical that the hormone that takes sugar from the bloodstream into the cell. It blocks it from going into the cell from the bloodstream. So it's like insulin grabs the sugar, and then it's like, let's go into the cell and do our job and be the delivery guy, and the fats just kind of hang out in the blood like, it's all sticky. And then the insulin's like can't get around it, and then the sugar builds up in the bloodstream, and then you got a diabetes problem. So if they're eating a lot of fat before or with the fruit, it's going to cause blood sugar problems because the sugar can't get out of the bloodstream. It's stuck there because there's a bunch of fat blocking it. So if the diet is high fiber and low fat, the blood sugar issue will not be a problem at all. There was a study called the Kempner study, which I'm not a huge fan of what they did, but just to prove it, they actually fed people white sugar, but just kept the fat really low in their diet, and they actually reversed diabetes on a diet of fruit, rice, and sugar. Not recommended, but yeah. Question in the back.
Yeah, so you just said something about that. So can you talk about oils? There's a trend of people eliminating all oils out of their diets, and I don't know the benefit of that. Could you speak to that at all?
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question. So let me answer that question with a question just to illustrate a point. Olive oil. right? You've heard of that. Do you know how do you make olive oil?
Cold press or pressing the oil out and
Yes, so they press it, right? They cold press it. I mean, they say cold press as if there's some kind of hot press. I don't know if that exists, right? But they take a bunch of olives and they put in a big machine called a press, right? Which is like a giant like trash compactor. You don't want to get stuck inside and smush you. And they smush the olives, and then what comes out? Oil, right? But then the question is, what is left behind? Yes, right? Like basically everything else. So the oil is fat, okay? And then what's left behind is the fiber, the protein, the carbohydrates, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytonutrients, basically all the nutrition. And you're left with fat with maybe a little bit of vitamin E in it and no other nutrients, right? So you have this very nutritionally void liquid substance that's actually very high in calories, right? 1 tablespoon of oil, like you take a spoon and you were like put olive oil on it and drink it, 120 calories. Like that's it, right? Like you put the same amount of table sugar, it would be like 50 calories. So it's much more calorically dense, no nutrition in it, it adds up fast and becomes a problem. The other thing is that once it's stripped from the constituent nutrients, once it's stripped from the fiber, it starts to go bad. There's something called rancidify, which means that the fat's no good. And then rancid fats, you don't want to be eating rancid fats like a carcinogen. So then the thing becomes, okay, olives are good for you. Olive oil, bad idea. Coconuts, great for you. Coconut oil, not a good idea. Avocados, awesome. Turn avocados into oil, bad idea. It's the same idea. It's the same thing. It's like, oh well, we could debate about whether corn's good for you or not, but it's like, oh, well, if corn's good for you, then corn syrup must be good for you. It's like, no. We know when we process that into a liquid sugar, we know that's bad. But if we process something into a liquid fat, we think, oh, it's healthy. They said in the magazine that coconut oil is good for you because it's made from coconuts, right? It's like, cornstarch is made from corn doesn't mean it's good for you. So the process of turning something into an oil just basically destroys any nutritional value. Did I answer the question? I feel like I gave you a really long explanation. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. I'll get. What time are we at?
8:10.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure some people got to go, so we'll get to signing books and all that. And then if you have more questions, I'll stick around, but I don't want to keep anybody who's got to go. So we'll wrap it up. I'll just be over there signing books. Thank you, guys. Yes, someone says corn is GMO and a no-no. Yes. Okay. We could do a whole 30-minute talk on corn.